Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this edition of Bearcat Chats. And in this episode, we're highlighting the December commencement ceremonies, and a pleasure to be joined by Emma Northrup, Isaiah Buchanan, Gabe Pinciotti, and Franklin Richards. Emma was the featured speaker or selected as the speaker for the Watson School of Engineering, Isaiah for the Decker College of Nursing and Health Sciences. Gabe was one of the Harper College speakers, and Franklin, who was back in our debut episode of Bearcat Chats, talking to us in May, was at the taping, and he'll give us some insight on that. Emma, let's start with you. Even though you couldn't be there in person, it's great to catch up with you just a few months after you've graduated. Now that you're a few months removed from it, how do you reflect back on your Binghamton career?
I loved my career at Binghamton. I think my speech reflected that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to give it during the recording of the ceremony, but I found a lot of ways to be involved and made some of the greatest friends I've ever had while at Binghamton while studying something that I loved. So definitely was a bittersweet ending to our college career, but I'm so grateful for all the other times we've had. And I think Binghamton adjusted pretty well towards the end. I know it was crazy, but I did feel like we at least were like made aware of what was going on, and now they're recognizing us for graduating, which is kind of a nice way to end, even though it's a few months later.
And Gabe, you're smiling. You were able to be at the ceremony in person. Tell me about the message of your speech.
Yeah, I actually changed my quite significantly towards because we'd originally written it, just for commencement, and then they said, "Oh, we're going to put it in a program. We don't know if we're going to be able to do it," and like that's okay, that's fine. And then, just a few they said, "Hey, we're going to record it. We're going to be able to do it in person." So I wanted to make mine more about the sort of the whole situation with the pandemic. Saying that things are strange and stressful right now doesn't even begin to encompass how many of you out there are probably feeling. But know that when things get tough, when things seem impossible and nothing seems to go your way, find the people you love, do the things you love, and love yourself. That'll keep you going. So I switched around a little bit, and I think it worked in the end, yeah.
And you've stayed around the Binghamton area, Gabe, and have been in some local productions. It's wild what you guys did with Shakespeare. Initially, when I heard that you were doing it, I thought to myself, "Oh, they must be in one place, but no one's going to be in attendance." No, this was a remote. Everyone was in a different location to perform the play. How did you pull it off?
Yeah, it was. I mean, they've been working on it since whenever it got shut down, March. Everyone in the department was trying to figure something out. What really helped though was that most of the cast was still around in Binghamton, so we could go to the scene shop, go to the costume shop, grab some stuff. They could check things. It was all safely done, of course, but I mean, it was kind of like doing the thing, except I did it from home in my room.
Wow. And Isaiah, you come in from a different perspective. You were part of the accelerated nursing program, just 1 year. Tell me what that was like and having a different sort of experience here at Binghamton.
So it was pretty much a whirlwind. You come in at the beginning of May, and it's just go, 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 go. So we work throughout the summer. We're on campus throughout the fall, doing clinicals 4 days a week, in and out of the hospital setting. This year, we were fortunate to have a December break, which normally doesn't happen for the Bats. And then we went back to it up until classes were ended and everything moved to an online platform for us.
What made you decide to pursue this program?
So, as a New York State resident, you really can't beat in-state tuition. Got to say that Binghamton is a great area, and there are tons of hospitals that are in need because we are in a rural area. So, I knew that I wanted to give back to a population that didn't have as many opportunities or advantages as some of the bigger cities. And I also had a number of friends who went to Binghamton and absolutely loved their experience. So, I was all aboard for that opportunity.
And more specifically, though, or actually more generally, what made you want to be a nurse? Were you in a totally different field? Was it something you always wanted to do?
So I always wanted to go into healthcare. I thought that being a physician and MD was the way to go about it. And I actually dabbled in that field of medicine and realized that physicians do a lot of the work in terms of thinking through the process and what's happening. But a lot of times, the way it's taught is that medicine looks at the illness and not necessarily the person, although that is changing. Whereas nursing is the heart is looking at the patient and getting hands on the patient and working with them and getting to know them and their story. And that's where my heart is, really getting to know people, getting in there, talking to them, trying to help them work through this very difficult time in their life and try to give them some sort of hope or just something to make them feel better in the midst of all this craziness that exists in healthcare.
And Franklin, last but not least, you were there in person, and obviously, when we spoke to you in May, it was really the pandemic. We were just a few months in, and what was the experience like being at a commencement ceremony, a unique one, but being at one in person?
It was definitely an experience and a half. It was actually my first time on campus since leaving in May.
Wow.
So I know some people are used to the changes on campus, but you had one stairs that went the other way, one stairs going down, and you can only walk on one side of the hallway. And it was very different for me. So being back there was like a different world, kind of, sort of, but also a closure that I finally got, because we didn't have the commencement in May. So being able to see a lot of the vice presidents, President Stanger, and all those people that I had worked with in my last year was definitely a good chapter to close in a very special but unique way.
Yeah, and Franklin, you were involved in student government, and I imagine even with masks on, the idea of being in person and not seeing someone through a Zoom call must have felt good.
Yes, yes. This is like the personal touch without the touch, obviously. It's just like seeing them, being able to like actually know there's person behind the computer screen. Um, it really helps to get things done, to be honest.
Emma, I can see why they picked you as the speaker. This resume is pretty impressive. Undergraduate research assistant with Watson, undergraduate student researcher, Wake Forest University Center for Injury Biomechanics, and that's the stuff I could understand. Then I was like, this is way over my head. Not that intelligent. But tell me, what did those experiences do to help prepare you, and what are you doing now?
Yeah, great question. I definitely jumped into research coming into college. I wasn't really sure if it was something I was interested in doing or not, so I decided to give it a try and wound up loving it, which is why I got involved in so many different opportunities. I spent a lot of time with biomechanics specifically, just because that focuses more on how the human body works and interacts with the world while it's doing different activities. So as simple as like walking down a road to doing some crazy weightlifting, biomechanics can help to define all of that. And I did my research in different areas of biomechanics, so it wasn't specifically just the human body that I studied, but that kind of gave me a really solid background, which showed me that my passion is studying the human body, healthcare, and kind of combining it with engineering. So that led me to my current program at the University of Hartford, where I'm studying prosthetics and orthotics, and I'll graduate in 2022 with a master's degree, so I can start practicing clinically then.
Yeah, you didn't waste any time doing your academic career. Yeah, the thing that I thought was interesting from an engineering standpoint, sometimes engineering can seem sort of abstract, and when I'm thinking about, especially coming from the sports world, these are things that are really usable and practical that you're studying on an everyday basis.
Yeah, for sure. So the prosthetic side of what I'm studying definitely is for a more specific group of individuals who are amputees, but I also am working on orthotics, which are bracing for limbs that might have a muscle deficiency or something. So if you see a basketball player wearing an ankle brace, that's something that I would fit to the patient. So it's been really cool to learn kind of how it combines working with patients who have very specific need to just a general everyday need, like a brace or an ankle sprain.
Isaiah, I can tell you're on board with this.
100%.
Gabe, Tell me, obviously, short term, you're in these plays, but long term, what are you looking to do? Do you want to stay in the acting world?
Yeah, yeah. It's always sort of everyone's plan is to go to the city at some point because I mean we're sort of we're close enough, and that's where everything is. I mean, there's commercials, movies, everything goes through there, in some capacity. So I'm a little in between things right now for obvious world wide reasons. Hey, that's the big plan. Get down there eventually with some friends. Get a tiny apartment, live that classic life everyone who lives in New York City has.
And Franklin, what about you? You did 6 years here at Binghamton, became very familiar. Isaiah did one, you did six. What I know you had a master's that you got here. What are you doing now with yourself?
Yeah, I got a master's in public administration, as you mentioned, and I'm currently working for the New York City Council. So, Gabe, come on down. We would love for more people to live in the city. Um, so that's basically what I'm doing. It's a very rewarding job. I get to work with people I would say I've lived with my entire life, growing up in the city. So my master's is being put to work.
Look at that. We're creating living arrangements with Gabe and Franklin here, and all in this episode. For Emma and Isaiah, what if you could have given your speech? What would be your message to students in this uncertain time?
So for me, as someone who is on the front lines and sees what's happening, um, to have faith, have resilience, know that we as a nation will get through this. It is a difficult time, but it's something that as long as we all band together and follow social distancing, please, um, hospitals all over the place are being strapped, whether it's the nursing staff, whether it's the ventilators that you have. It's a serious issue, and it's sad. You see people not survive on a daily basis. So it's something that I want people to be mindful of and just think before you decide to not wear a mask or do something that could put other people's health and livelihoods at risk. So
Love that message, Isaiah. I think it's super important. My speech actually didn't change much after the pandemic. I kept mine more general in finding something that makes you happy. And that's something that my parents have raised me, telling me to do. And I think it's something I've carried through with myself and wanted to share with my classmates that it is sometimes easy to get caught up in like the money or the title or where you're living or all of those other fancy things, I guess you could call them. But at the end of the day, your happiness is going to drive your success. So doing, even if it's a small thing, like for me, eating ice cream is my guilty pleasure. So like small things that can make you happy was the message that I was trying to send, and hoping that my classmates, regardless of their career or their path or wherever they go, continue to focus on themselves to drive their success.
Wow, really good messages. Gabe, Franklin, any closing thoughts from you guys?
It's actually funny. The Emma speech had very similar. There's one similar theme to mine of like just doing what you love. I agree with that more. Like just do what you love. Um, be with the people you love. I think that's how I've been getting through all of this at least. I went to school for acting and music, and that's what I like to do. So I get to do it, and that's I don't know. Everyone should do what they love to do. And I think lockdown's been pretty good of helping people find what new hobbies, new stuff. So yeah.
Um, I would honestly piggyback off what everyone has been saying, especially what Isaiah mentioned earlier about, yeah, we are currently have to follow these guidelines, and I think the distance it's affecting people differently, but it's important. Um, Tonight together we're united, and if we can be united on this one battle, we can tackle anything. And I think the class of 2020, the four of us showed that we are able to do that.
And I think it's a great message from all of you, in that certainly unique times, certainly unprecedented restrictions, but the general concept of following your passion and doing something that you love stays the same, and that eventually there's light at the end of the tunnel where you can continue to pursue that. Emma Northrup, Isaiah Buchanan, Gabe Pinciotti, Franklin Richards, thank you all so much. A lot for Binghamton to be proud of in this panel here, and wishing all of you, of course, only continued success.
Thanks
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
Thank you.